has been kept at its absolute maximum. This afternoon at Amy Park, on the land of the Wurundjeri people, Melbourne City will be playing for a place in next season's Champions League and the millions in prize money on offer against their visitors today, Sydney FC, playing for their survival. These two sides, both former champions of the Isuzu UTE A-League. Sydney last week failed to get the point that would have seen them into finals ahead of Adelaide. They have one last chance, 90 minutes this afternoon at Amy Park, to try and get the point they need to sneak into finals football. While for Melbourne City, a win will ensure them a place in the top two, a week off for the elimination finals, and home advantage in the return leg of the semis. These two have a long history. They've twice met in the grand finals for a win apiece. Let's have a look how they line up this afternoon. Aurelio Vidmar, he's still without a host of injured players. There's no Steven Ugarkovic, Samuel Suprayon, Jimmy Jego, Andrew Nabu, but Matt Leckie does return to the bench. Otherwise, no change in that side that drew last time out against Adelaide. They have drawn their last two. Up front, Max Caputo, Jonathan Cohen and Marco Tilio will all be looking to add to their 4 goals they have so far this term. While for Sydney FC, Ufuk Talay also has his own injury headaches. No Alex Grant, no Leo Senna or Josh Sotirio, they're all out. But Corey Holman and, importantly, Patrick Klimala do return to the bench. There's one change to the starting 11, where Anas Waim comes in for Jaden Kaczarski, leading the line in attack. The league's top scorer, Adrian Segicic. Our referee this afternoon, Adam Kersey. He's being assisted by Andrew Mamarakis and Hugh Fenton-White. The fourth official is Adam Bavkar, and in the VAR room, Lara Lee and Richard Nomovsky. There are two coaches that know each other very, very well. Big afternoon for Ufuk Talay. The pressure is on. He has suggested in press conferences that he's got a new 2-year offer at the club, but Sydney FC still yet to confirm or make that announcement. Aurelio Vidmar, his opposite number, has done an outstanding job in a very difficult campaign with so many Socceroos and main players missing, whether it's been the international players or the homegrown stars as well. Marco Tilio, who scored the first goal of the campaign, was then sidelined for large periods of it, but he's back and he is in outstanding form, as is the Austrian Andreas Kuhn. Marco Tilio, he plays his 99th A-League match. 3 of them, the first 3, were for Sydney FC, and he has scored 3 times against the Sky Blues when wearing City Blue for the next 95 times in the A-League. He may well cross paths with another Socceroo teammate, Anthony Caceres. He's playing his 281st A-League match. 49 of them were for Melbourne City, but in 24 matches against his former employers, just 7 wins and no goals scored. Sydney FC, they know what they have to do. They need at least a point to keep their season alive. The most successful club in A-League history, on the precipice of missing out on finals football. Andy Harper, you would back them normally to get the necessary point, but they're up against a side who have shown their form this season and who have absolutely something to play for themselves. A place in Asia and a semi-final berth, yeah, Melbourne City.
Sorry, most certainly, Robbie. Too eager to get into this. I've been counting the days. really till this Saturday. 3 massive A-League men's games, all with relationships beyond the 90 minutes that both sets of players will play it. Action gets underway here. Sydney need to avoid defeat. Melbourne City need to win to secure their second place ambitions. Anything less than that and the door is open for Western United, who kick off at 6, and the Wanderers, who visit Macarthur at 7:30 this evening. What a Saturday to round out the home and away season.
It's one after the other at the moment. Melbourne City can't get it done. Western United will have a chance. If they can't get it done, it goes to the Wanderers. And if they can't get it done, Melbourne Victory even have a chance. Mind you, they are, given goal differences, will need a big win. But perhaps if all the other cards fall in their favour, they might back themselves to do that tomorrow as well. It's been an intriguing season that's led to an intriguing final instalment. Importantly here, Sydney FC have to throw the form guide, the historical form guide, between these two sides out the window. Melbourne City have won their last 7 in a row at home at Amy Park against Sydney FC. Sydney FC's most recent win at Amy Park against Melbourne City was in November 2018. That is going back a long time. A brace from Adam Lafondra and a goal from Paulo Retre that day. They've also met in a couple of grand finals. One that Ryan Grant remembers fondly, one that Nathaniel Atkinson remembers fondly, a win apiece in 2020 for Sydney FC, and then 2021. Here is Atkinson, the two right backs who made the difference in those grand finals. And once again, Andy, we saw it as they lined up. Joe Lolly is playing left back.
And 3 central defenders for Sydney. Lolly, a wide defender on the left with the brief to get up and down the line. Physically very taxing job. Ryan Grant, more used to it on the near touchline. There, the Sydney skipper closing down Marco Tilio. He's been deputising as a centre half.
Good touch from Bajic, receiving from Zane Schreiber. The cross in from Bajic. Zane Schreiber, a former Sydney FC youngster as well, like Marco Tilio.
And Lapane.
Yep. Western Sydney
Western
as
Sydney,
well, Lapane.
Grew up as a Sydney FC fan before the Wanderers snapped him up as a 13-year-old.
Kuhn back for Tilio through the legs of Adrian Segicic in the first corner of this contest.
That's a good settled start from Melbourne City. Visitors today, I can only imagine the nervous tension. So much expected of the players, of course, but certainly the club and the fans, given the way the team was set up this year. Goal scoring generally has not been a problem, but keeping goals out at the other end has really been an Achilles heel for Sydney.
Tilio's ball in. Devonish Mears under pressure with the punch. Bajic doesn't score many, but he scored here inside 5 minutes. And the Melbourne City captain gets just his 3rd ever A-League goal and his first since returning from a decorated career in Europe.
Well, the Harvey Norman replay shows the corner in from Tilio. Sydney can't put the attention on Aziz Bajic the way they need. On review, Harrison Devonish Mears has to claim that. And if you're going to punch, it's got to be more effective. It's not a great start for the Sydney keeper. He can't make amends. But the vulnerabilities of Sydney exposed early here by Melbourne City, who can sniff second place.
Well, it is absolutely the most perfect start they could have hoped for. Melbourne City. Aziz Bajic. His last goal came from Melbourne Heart against Brisbane Roar back in March 2014 in the Isuzu UTE A-League. Well, if Sydney did have any questions about how to approach this game, they've surely gone out the window now. They need goals. They need 2. 1 for a draw and 2 to win, unanswered.
The draw is mandatory, they're gone. So in that sense, the challenge remains the same.
There's the league ladder as it stands, and the other 3 sides in that top 6 looking on, while Adelaide are cheering. Western United, Western Sydney, Melbourne Victory are hoping Sydney can get back.
And given, as we started referring to the nervous tension, nervous energy around the Sydney team because of everything that was expected by players and coach and the club in general, to have faltered at the first time of asking. It's a soul-crushing blow inflicted by Melbourne City.
Sydney have been generally pretty good at conceding from set pieces as well. It's just the 7th goal they've conceded, their 5th from a corner. But they didn't deal with it. Their keeper. There have been questions asked of Devon Ishmeers, who's kept Andrew Redmayne out of the side since round 8 of the season. Caceres for Joe Lolly. And there was the punch. And then as the ball fell inside the box, driven back in at the near post, there's the Andrew Redmayne and the Sydney bench watching on. What that also does, Andy, means that Melbourne City can really look to set the tempo they want now.
Certainly, and Wilfred Tale built the team, and certainly his coaching approach has been to get the energy going, high intensity, high press upfield. Deploying Douglas Costa as a centre forward is not going to help you in the press. Wonderful as he is as a player, and we've just sat and enjoyed so much of what he's done this year.
City are back on the front foot again. Tilio closed down by Camijo. Bajic. With Tilio again. They're leading Sydney FC a bit of a merry dance at the moment. Trewin with Kuhn. His cross towards Caputo. Joel King's header. Trewin and Schreiber just getting in each other's way a little bit there. Now one for Segicic to chase, but he's certainly, German Ferreira had his measure there.
Easily cleaned up by Ferreira. And, you know, it's going to be hard for Sydney, given the way the team's set up and where people are playing, to really put the centre halves for Melbourne City under pressure. They'll be carrying the ball out with no particular spotlight on them at all. And if you're Sydney, do you really want Douglas Costa burning fuel, doing doggies between the 2 centre halves, trying to stop the flow of possession?
Jonathan Cohen now back outside, one for Alessandro Lopane to chase. He returned from that very serious knee injury this season, Lopane, and scored the winner against Sydney FC. There he is on the ball, gets it back towards Atkinson. Lopane again with Cohen. Lopane inside and out, found Caputo at the near post. His first time shot blocked by Joel King. Well, at the start of the season, so much was made of Sydney FC's good start in Asia as well. A very attractive recruitment, Klimala. Douglas Costa, obviously the jewel in the crown. Anas Waim. Even with injuries to Leo Senna more recently. the departure of a Hayden Matthews, the young central defender. Still, this side, given their position in the league, they just haven't lived up to the potential in the pre-season billing. They still have one more chance, though. That is now. They've made the worst possible start, but they've got 80 minutes to try and turn this one around. And when you do have that talent, the league's top scorer, Adrian Segicic, Patrick Klimala on the bench, Douglas Costa, Anthony Caceres. The quality is there. It's just, it hasn't been harnessed so far this campaign. Not consistently, anyway.
No, they look like they've run out of a bit of juice physically, and now having got themselves in a hole, really looking for the inspiration to get out of it. And from the start of the season, they had problems in defence, undermanned. A lot of the recruitment obviously went to the front half of the field, which has made for some sparkling football in an attacking sense. The recruitment of Alex Grant was telling. He made a very positive, it took him a while to get ready to play, and when he came in, he really seemed to shore things up and give confidence to those around him. The calf injury that he suffered a couple of weeks ago, incredibly untimely, both on the continental stage and now in the run into the finals. And they just look a little bit all over the place at the moment. Sydney, it's a pretty pressure-free day at the job as it's day at the office as it's turning out so far for Melbourne City. Plenty of time still to come, however.
Alex Grant even made that debut call-up to the Socceroos squad as well in that last window. Cohen delivers, good ball for Trewin. The flag stayed down. That was a good opportunity.
He's one of the players of the season, Kai Trewin, in my mind at least, and he's scored goals from set pieces. He got a header against the Wanderers to level the scores just a couple of weeks ago. He just cannot be unpatrolled. I mean, this is a glaring error in the Sydney defence again, and they're lucky to get away with that one. But what a season he's had, Trewin.
3 goals as well to his name. Now, Cohen. Jonathan Cohen with Caputo. They're in again. Good stop from Devonish Mears. And Caceres finds Lolly. Sydney with the opportunity to try and break away, and it's a foul by Jonathan Cohen.
He's very relieved. Jordan Courtney-Perkins, I'd suggest, in the dock for the first goal, but saves his team on that occasion. Devonish Mears.
Grant back with Popovic. Oh, that's given away cheaply. Looking for the big switch. It's Cohen again. Went inside looking for Caputo. He had Lopane ahead of him as well. Now Lolly. Just getting the free kick off Nathaniel Atkinson. Through the legs and then catching the foot as he looked to get forward. Another challenging statistic for Sydney FC is that Melbourne City, for a long time this season, have been tied with Auckland for the best defence in the land. They've got the second best at the moment. They have conceded 24 goals in 25 matches. Segicic with Douglas Costa. Strong challenge from Lopane. Cohen's touch just got away from him. And now Lolly strikes off the post. Well, Beach was beaten, I think, by the bounce as much as anything. Ferocious strike from Joe Lolly. Sydney FC, they're here on the quarter hour.
Well, this is where the game can tilt. As out of sorts as Sydney have looked, certainly defensively, I think Beach did get a touch onto that. Onto the post. Good hit from Joe Lolly. And Sydney so top-heavy with their talent. And that's what Melbourne City have to be wary of. confidence booster that, I'd suggest, for Joe Lolly. It was arguably his cleanest hit at goal from that sort of situation in quite a number of weeks.
I think Patrick Beach, you're right, did get the crucial touch. Might have just kissed off the inside of the post and in otherwise. Schreiber, Cohen, Camijo cleans up. Douglas Costa kept in, but only just by Segicic. Ferreira twirled to the ground by Douglas Costa. He's asking the referee a question or two. Right. Back to continue with Trewin. Bajic, great first time ball, fabulous touch from Cohen. Oh, and then with options in the middle, it was a heavy touch that ran it out of play.
It was a beautiful ball from Aziz Bajic. That's simply delightful from Cohen. Courtney Perkins closing him down enough for him to lose his concentration.
Arthur Dillis, the Melbourne Victory coach, watching from the stands. He was at Western United last week as well. Melbourne Victory, who are into the finals, they'll be taking on potentially either of these two sides in the weeks to come. For the moment, it's Adelaide United who are happiest with how things stand at the moment, as well as Melbourne City. Schreiber. Back with Beach. Again, City able to play their way forward comfortably enough. Atkinson turns way in. Cohen. Segicic spotting the intentions there, put pressure on Kai Trewin. Melbourne City already with more than 2/3 possession. We just saw the pressure passes. Touches in the opposition box and passes in the opposition half, but it's 4 shots as well to just 1. And now Caputo just marshalled out of that one by Joel King. One of 4 players on 4 goals for Melbourne City, who, for all Sydney's attacking flair, Melbourne City, well, it's been their defensive solidity that's been key to their success this season. Mehmeti, Tilio, Caputo and Cohen, all equal top scorers with just 4 goals. As is Bajic, becoming their 16th different goal scorer this season. That's more than any other club. They've had to share it around. Bajic, here he is again. Tilio, closed down by Camijo. Getting the nod ahead of Corey Holman, who's returned from his latest injury. Didn't feature last weekend after coming off the bench the week before against Newcastle. Ferreira. With Bajic again. By Trewin. again, Schreiber. For the moment, Sydney unable to get close enough to try and put real pressure on Melbourne City. Ferreira with Atkinson. It's in these sort of areas where you do have to put the pressure on, and that's what Joe Lolly's done on his opposite number, Jonathan Cohen. Bajic with the big switch of play. Another stat, Andy, and I did warn you I had a curious stat up my sleeve, which has only been confirmed with Aziz Bajic. They've scored more goals with their left foot this season than with their right. Only one other team in the league have done that, and it's Sydney FC, with Segicic and Costa, their goal scorers. But it's an unusual statistic to see, and Bajic only confirming that. Tilio.
It's a staggering statistic, Robbie. And even more alarming is that you went looking for it.
They just jump off the page sometimes. Ferreira. He has one goal, a header, and a winner. And the 3-2 win over Brisbane 3 weeks ago. Took him a little bit of time to adapt to life in the A-League. The Argentine who spent the last few years in Russia. That's a good ball. First time for Caputo. Schreiber, first time again for Cohen. They've opened them up here. And the Austrian tried to pick his spot from distance. He still managed to get an earful from Aziz Bajic.
Entitled to shoot, he says. Just doesn't do it well. Very clever play. Good pick up from Melbourne City. And he adds to the team when he takes the field. He had a bit of an injury run himself.
Tale is out near the halfway line.
He might be changing the formation.
Yeah, he was talking to Joel King, wasn't he, at the back, and Courtney Perkins. And it falls to Segicic. Now Douglas Costa. Segicic, nice turn. Has he been caught there? Not by Lupane, says the referee. Let's head down to Michael Zapponi, who's on the sideline for us. Zappers.
Yeah, plenty happening there. The Sydney FC coaching staff calling a few players over, so they're looking to change things around the formation, because Melbourne City absolutely dominating possession. I think they're over 70% possession, and as Harps reiterated early, the centre-backs, Melbourne City, are doing as they please. Sydney FC just standing off them and allowing them to play the ball as they want. Ufuk Talay did try and get the message out to his midfielders earlier to make sure they're pressing in these types of positions, but Melbourne City undeterred at the moment, and they've got plenty of the ball and creating those opportunities. Aurelio Vidmar was really upset with that Max Caputo miss, because he thought he should have lifted the ball over the keeper, and that would have made a huge difference.
Well, it's a little more orthodox from Sydney now. They changed to 3 at the back and 2 wing-backs last week, and to me it didn't look like a really settled idea on the field. So Joe Lolly is pushed further up. Joel King goes to left fullback now. Courtney Perkins redeployed as a centre-half. I think there's potential in Jordan as a centre-half himself. He gets the opportunity now in this live-or-die scenario to prove that.
The ball in behind Caputo. It's a good run. Max Caputo. Nice touch. Caputo still. Oh, he's put it in at the near post. Well, he turned Popovic inside out. And he went low again, but this time through a mouse hole. underneath Devonish Mears and the near post. And he may have missed a chance earlier, but he's put the second away. City lead by 2.
Well, maybe with Aurelia Vidmar's words ringing in his ear, the Harvey Norman replay shows Max Caputo killing the ball beautifully and beating Devonish Mears at the near post. But it's far from tigerish defending from Sydney. It's really weak defending, right from halfway. They never look like laying a glove on player or ball, literally or metaphorically. And in the end, in it goes at the near post. And Melbourne City are setting sail for that second place, and Sydney in all sorts of trouble.
A 5th goal of the season for Max Caputo, who spent the first half of it watching from the sidelines with that broken leg. Suffered just on the eve of the campaign. But he's back, and he's showing all his quality. Melbourne City's youngest ever goal scorer, and that's going back a couple of years now. Well, they came from 2 goals down against Newcastle a couple of weeks ago, Sydney FC. But it was at home, where they have been much better than on the road this season. And with all due respect, it was against Newcastle and not Melbourne City in the form they're in at the moment. Caceres with Grant. It's come off Kai Trewin, out for a corner. They need to get a foothold in this contest. Is this a way back for Sydney FC?
Well, they've had, by my count, Robbie, in 27 minutes, they've had 2 sequences of possession in the Melbourne City defensive third. One hit the post with a lolly shot, now they've won a corner, but it's not enough of a yield, really. Conversion when they're up there so far, decent.
Near post, header away by Caputo. Oh, the break's on. Jonathan Cohen. He's got Lapane ahead of him. Marco Tilio as well. Atkinson with Schreiber.
Meanwhile in Adelaide, Carl Veart has officially put the champagne in the fridge. It was just sitting in the box waiting for some sort of invitation, but I thought we may as well whack it in the fridge, because if it continues like this, he'll be popping that champagne and getting ready for finals next weekend. Sydney have put themselves in an enormous hole.
Schreiber with a big switch. Tilio. Caceres flying into that challenge. Patrick Klimala. Is he warming up? Ready to give a different option at the point of the attack. He's missing with that cyst in his knee as Lapane tries one from distance. Well, he'd been left out the last 2 weeks. Patrick Klimala, after playing with injections. Grant standing his ground more than anything, I think.
Yeah, just bracing himself is totally entitled to do that. Doesn't mean it was comfortable for Kewen, and I don't think Ryan Grant necessarily did anything wrong there. But they look, the body language from the Sydney players is flat. The coverage of the ground is less than the intensity one imagines is required. They've just got to hang in through this, what is evidently a very difficult period in the game. Melbourne City supremacy, they're looking cuts above at the moment, the home team.
Ryan Grant just chatting with Kewen. Now Douglas Costa is on the sideline chatting with Ufuk Talay there as well. A couple more words. That one will be one to keep an eye on.
I think Ryan for the sake of the Austrian, was providing a little bit of Canandra dialect. Can we call it that?
Very different from the Austrian Alps, probably. Lolly gets there with Joel King, back to Courtney Perkins. So Camacho is very much the number 6 now with that change as well. He's got Caceres ahead of him. Here's Lolly. Waim dispossessed by Lopane. Oh, but he's won it back. Waim still going. Anas Waim still going. Off the post. They've hit the woodwork for a second time. And Atkinson furious with Lopane for getting caught in possession.
Well, he's a very clever player, is Kwahim, on the more positive side of that discussion. Look at him dance through the traffic here, feints and changes of direction. And for all their difficulties, Sydney, they've hit the post twice. And again, just on the back of an envelope calculation, it's probably the 3rd or 4th time only they've been in the Melbourne City defensive third. Hit the post twice, won a corner. The problem is in between times. They're so leaky at the back. But the quality at the front is still capable of getting them out of this predicament.
A second shot of the game, a second against the woodwork. Truan back with Bajic. You can see they've got Joe Lolly back on the right flank. Now it's looking more and more like a 4-4-2 with Segicic almost a second striker alongside Douglas Costa. Lopane with Ferreira, now Patrick Beach. Truan looks long. Caputo putting the pressure on. Devonish Mears with Popovic. Sydney able to play their way out of a tight spot. I saw Patrick Klimala warming up. That poses the question, who do you take off of that front 4 as well, because Lolly and Segicic have goals in them.
Yeah, well, I think you'd have to sacrifice the youngster Camacho. You'd have to put Anthony Caceres back into that holding midfield position, which he's capable of doing.
If you concede another goal as well, it could be curtains. Here they come. Oh, great touch from Tilio. He's in. That's 3. And that is just about curtains. Well, every time they've come forward, they have cut through Sydney like a knife through butter. It's a demonstration from Aurelio Vidmar's side. And the woes at the back continue, amplified.
Well, it is, on the Harvey Norman replay, more evidence of wet paper bag defending. You're not going to challenge for a title, let alone make the 6, on the evidence of the half hour that's opened this match for Sydney. It's a blitz from Melbourne City, who are doing it easy here in Melbourne.
Tale looking off somewhere into the distance. Their heaviest ever loss to Melbourne City was 4-0 back in 2011. Well, if this continues, there'll be some rewriting of the record books going on here. They've only won 1 of their last 12 against Melbourne City. That looks like it's going to be 1 of 13 soon. Oh, Popovic giving it away, grabbing at Kuhn, and that'll be a yellow card to go with the goals. Well, it's been 36 minutes to forget for the Sydney FC backline. Defenders and goalkeeper included. You can probably include the entire team, because with the ease with which Melbourne City are bringing the ball forward as well. It points the finger everywhere. And saying they're back a very long way. Lopane. It's going to be Jonathan Cohen to strike it. He was looking for one of those knuckle balls that move around in the air. Just too high. Well, perhaps if instead of hitting the post, those balls had gone in, it would have been a very different story. But for the moment, it is very hard to see Sydney FC finding any way back into this contest. Courtney Perkins with King. Waim gingerly back to his feet. Caceres.
Well, the next thing that Sydney have to do is make sure that this is to be their fate, that a season that started with such promise doesn't just end in disappointment, it ends in utter catastrophe. And you have to start taking on that mentality, because your professional pride's at stake here.
Well, they need 3 unanswered goals now, and that's if City don't add a 4th. There's nothing to guarantee that won't happen at the moment either. Waim plays in Douglas Costa. So often he's been the catalyst. Lolly arriving now. Joe Lolly strikes it. Left by Beach as he judged it just rising over the crossbar.
Ends up Sydney's first shot that hasn't hit the frame of the goal. Came close enough. Beach pretty comfortable with that. Yeah, Vidmar will want those situations tightened up. Goals can change things. Goals can change energy flows. And his team, Vidmar's team, have Sydney right where they want them. The stiletto of the high heel is poised right at Sydney's carotid artery. And he won't want them to remove that.
Beach looks long. Tilio and Grant. Great respect between the two number 23s as well. Just the one on target, the one that Patrick Beach turned on to the post. The first of the night from Joe Lolly. Of those shots at goal. Caceres up the line, it's turned over again. Caputo dispossessed by Camijo, dragged down by Cohen. I wonder what Ufuk-Talay will be trying to think about concocting for the second half, because it has to be a completely different approach, a different mentality. And the question is, do Sydney FC have that in their locker?
Well, you'd have to imagine if Klimala was fit, even close to, he'd have started. But they don't have the mobility in the front line as things stand to stem the possession of Melbourne City that's coming forward. They've certainly got the quality when they can get the ball forward to do their own damage, as we've seen.
Kamijo wins it back well. Douglas Costa now with Lolly. Segicic in the middle. Lolly against Bajic. Douglas Costa. Does that come off the hand of Alessandro Lopane? The little back heel sliding in. Lopane as well. They're hungry for everything at the moment, Melbourne City. They want that place in Asia in the Champions League. Kamijo is looking long as Grant got forward. Segicic wrestling with Lopane. Caceres. Wayne, good touch. Under pressure from Truan. Lolly again getting one-on-one with Bajic, looking to accelerate at pace. The ball breaks kindly for Joe Lolly.
Well, he dug something out of not much there, Joe Lolly. Great perseverance. More evidence when Sydney can get the ball forward and turn Melbourne City around, they look half likely.
The left foot of Douglas Costa delivers, back post, too close to Patrick Beach, and we've got a Melbourne City player down, as is Bajic. He's been caught in a wrestling match, but he's well away from the 6-yard box. Don't forget, coming up in about 15 minutes time on Paramount Plus, Western United taking on Auckland FC. Get your second screen ready for that one. Western United will be aware of what's gone on in the first 42 minutes or so here, you'd imagine. Their chances of finishing second and having a week off. It's not the only thing they're playing for. Those next three sides, Western United, the Western Sydney Wanderers and Melbourne Victory, also hoping to have, if they are in an elimination final, that they have home advantage in that first week of finals football. That could make a big difference. Devonish Mears looks long, straight out of play. Joe Lolly just balked out of it by Tilio's leap. A number of these Sydney FC players out of contract at the end of the season as well, so we know it's Andrew Redmayne's potentially last game for Sydney FC this evening. Alex Grant, who was just signed in January as urgent cover at the back and who is now injured. Anthony Caceres is off contract as well as Adrian Segicic and Patrick Klimala. Popovic. Tilio for Lopane. Ball in behind for Cohen. Well, it's just too easy in behind, and that was another really good chance.
Well, while Sydney have been able to hit the post a couple of times, that might have been borderline. Equally, Melbourne City would have had a fourth. Couple of chances for that. Cohen's done some great things and then blazed away a couple of times.
3 minutes of stoppage time to be played in this first half. Ferreira with Tilio. Schreiber all the way back. Caputo, no foul by Alexander Popovic. Ferreira not giving Segicic anything at the moment. The league's top scorer with 13 goals. He was kept scoreless last weekend against Western United. Hit the post again in that one. It's a common theme in the last couple of weeks. Sydney failing to score last weekend against Western United, the 5th time that's happened to them this season. Here's Segicic. They know not to give him any space from distance with that left foot. Very nicely done by Marco Tilio against Douglas Costa.
Well, the other discussion point about Sydney as we go into this very interesting half-time for them is the absence of Patrick Klimala. He's opened the door for a starting berth for Segicic, but the fact of the matter is, so far, he's done all his damage as an ultra-high-impact sub.
YM, space on that left-hand side. Joel King drives it in low. Segicic. In between Ferreira and Schreiber, they managed to defuse the danger along with their keeper, Patrick Beach.
And again, they're making that passage into the goal-scoring situation. This time, the rebounds all favouring Melbourne City. They've earned that luck by the professional performance they've put in this opening half.
Courtney Perkins' header. He scored against City earlier this season. City's 3-2 win. Well, that's half-time. It's been a half to forget for Sydney FC. It's been a perfect half of football for the home side. Melbourne City, who have just confirmed their status as favourites for that place in the Asian Champions League. Sydney have hit the post a couple of times, but Sydney have been second best in this first half of football. The inquisition begins as they head down back into the changing room. As is Bajic, Max Caputo and Marco Tilio, the scorers. And at half-time, Melbourne City 3 leads Sydney FC 0. We're heading off to a very quick break. Tara, Archie and Broski will be back to analyse all of this in the half-time show. Don't go away.
Yeah, and Max Caputo has had massive boots to fill. If you look at Melbourne City's striker over the last few years, they've had some very experienced and prolific strikers in Bruno Fornaroli. Then, of course, Jamie McLaren came along, and they were all Golden Boot winners. Now this young man in Max Caputo has had to step up this season, Tara, and he's done a great job. He's only played 12 games. Remember, he's come back into this side after a long injury layoff, and he's done very well under such pressure. 5 goals now for the season. Aurelio Vidmar was really upset when he missed his first opportunity, but he took his second really well. And we can highlight the defensive work, but we can also highlight just how good Max Caputo has been, and he's continued to toil amongst some very experienced players. And he's going to be crucial to them coming into this finals campaign, should they go all the way.
This year's Alex Tobin Medal is brought to you by Isuzu UTE. The winner of the prestigious award will win their choice of a brand new top-of-the-range Isuzu D-Max or 7-seat MUX. Plus, the Isuzu UTE Alex Tobin medalist will nominate a junior football club to win $10,000. Make sure you're watching this season's grand final when the winning player and club will be revealed.
Welcome back to Amy Park. As you can see, changes, at least one, for Sydney FC. They need to go all-out attack. The defensive midfielder, Camijo, has been replaced by the attacker, Klimala. Pain injections and all in that cyst in his knee. But hopefully, for Sydney FC, they can still make a game of this. They need a point. They need 3 unanswered goals to keep their hopes alive of finals football. Andy Harper, it's hard to see on that first half performance that they could realistically achieve that.
No, it was diabolical, actually.
They're an early chance though, and it's Segacic who's found Klimala against Ferreira. Douglas Costa. Joel King with Caceres. Confirmation of that change at the break. Caceres still. Caceres again, Douglas Costa, this is good football. Segacic on the left. And he looked to square it. It's a positive start from Sydney FC. Sydney FC, who incidentally spent about 4 minutes in the changing room before being sent back out. Patrick Klimala was literally standing on the sideline near the halfway line for about 5 minutes, waiting for the opposition and the referees all to emerge. And for Tale, his message must have been short and sharp.
Pointed.
Very sharp, probably. Tilio. Here's Lopane on the edge of the area. Cohen. He'll want it on his left, overlapping run, Atkinson.
Well, chances at either end to get the second half underway. A second half that looks like confirming Melbourne City as Asian Champions League elite participants next year. When second, means finishing first really in that discussion. Huge turnaround expected from Sydney. It was a very short half-time address, probably just enough to instruct on the substitution. And the Sydney players taking the field, and the kids were still doing their mini-roos, but the way they played in the first half, they wouldn't have beaten the 6-year-olds.
Popovic's header, kept in by Segacic. Early ball, good ball as well for Douglas Costa, the cross. You can see he's still got the brains. Yeah, now Devenish Mears slipped when taking that goal kick, and he looked to fall rather awkwardly. He's been signalling to the bench. Tilio for Bajic, looking for the cutback. Oh, he's really struggling, Devenish Mears. He did well to get a hand on that. It looks like, is it perhaps the groin has gone. Wayne. Well, Andrew Redmayne may well be about to get a reprieve from the bench. There it is. The right groin as soon as he kicked it. He knew. Well, surely, if that is how it looks, he's in a little bit of trouble. Let's head down to Michael Zapponi on the sideline. Zappers, what can you tell us?
Yeah, I did have a brief chat to Ufuk Talay just as he emerged from the rooms, and he was just shaking his head. He said there's not much you can do to coach some of those defensive errors they made in that first half, but he needs to obviously see a huge turnaround. Now, Andrew Redmayne is readying himself. He had an emotional farewell in Sydney in front of his fans just a couple of weeks ago, but it looks like Andrew Redmayne, the grey wiggle, the hero for the Socceroos only a couple of years ago, is coming on for what will be his last game for Sydney FC. Stranger things have happened. Robbie, he was a hero for Australian national team. Wonder what he can do here.
Exactly, Zappers. Well, Sydney FC need a hero. There's not much doubt about that. Between 2012 and 15, he played 48 A-League matches for Melbourne City as well. A former Mariner, a former Brisbane Roar, a former Wanderer as well. Lolly, well defended by Bajic, the follow-up. And now Segicic, a chance to unleash perhaps that left boot. Beach with the save, just took it off the nose of a Sydney FC player who was arriving in the box. And Devenish Mears is clearly struggling. He's dealt with that pretty well, considering. Waim fouled by Ferreira. And I think that change is going to come now.
Well, this is at least another half chance from Sydney. I mean, a bit of a broken record, but Melbourne City are looking a little porous themselves. Now, there is a significant quality consideration there for the Sydney players, but that Melbourne City have to deal with. But still, it's the back half of the field and the general lack of mobility today. But that's been brewing for weeks too. They've looked like the gas tank has been empty for a number of weeks, Sydney. Each match seems to just reconfirm that. They need a miracle here for Sydney FC.
Second substitution being made. Well, we weren't sure we'd see him again for Sydney FC. A nice round of applause as well for him from the travelling supporters. He's unflappable, isn't he? Given the situation, still a little smile. There is Devenish Mears, who's now in the hands of the physio.
Well, needless to say, of course, Robbie, that's one extra field player that Ufuk Talay can't use off the bench. And in a team that, as this match wears on, if there's still any hope, of course, and a tiring bunch, they really might look to have a little bit of an injection off the bench. But there's Caceres just stumbling into the ball, conceding the corner.
And it's one substitution window gone as well. Far from ideal. And a corner. Caceres conceding. Ferreira's come forward. Will Redmayne be called into action here? It's a good ball in. Well defended by Douglas Costa. Lolly finds way in. Douglas again. The ball is behind Ryan Grant. Cohen with Cohen. And despite Sydney's press and the pressure around the ball player, again, they've been able to play their way through. It's a clever little touch again from Andreas Cohen, but Caputo was caught in an offside position. Again, it's the little flick from Cohen, always looking to make things happen.
Even Caputo was expecting that one, put in that offside position, but so clever is Cohen. He's really emerging. He's shown this all year, so it's no surprise, but he really is emerging as a player of serious danger in the knockout matches. Unwary opposing teams.
He's got 7 assists to his name as well this season. Caputo dispossessed by Cohen. They've won it back though. Again, a little slip and then a foul. And it's Anas Waim, whose frustration just got the better of him there. He goes into the book, joining Alexander Popovic. Well, if those frustrations continue to grow, that's going to be another little headache for Ufuk Talay that he's going to have to manage as well. Klimala. You could see him explaining to Andreas Cohen just before kickoff about the problem he had in the knee. Oh, it's well left. And then that's a big dive from Patrick Klimala, and he'll get booked. Now, is he saying he's not asking for a penalty?
Clever from Costa. Just a little heavy on the touch. Adam Kersey having none of that. Fair enough.
He's an outstanding striker, Patrick Klimala. 10 goals in the league, 5 in Asia as well, in Champions League 2. Atkinson can't find Lopane. See, there's still a little bit of urgency down there on the bench for Sydney FC. They haven't given this one up. 10 minutes gone in the second half. No change to the half-time score. Just a change in goalkeeper and striker for Sydney FC, yet to pay dividends. Lolly with Waim. Gets it back from Popovic. Caceres. Challenged by Schreiber, and again, City are everywhere. Sydney City are proposing a very stiff challenge to the ball carrier at every opportunity. Popovic. Waim. Popovic again. Redmayne's first touch. They've won it back, City. Cohen, great turn. Andreas Cohen still going. He might yet get another opportunity. He does. And he buries it. And with it, he has surely buried Sydney FC's finals hopes, if there were any remaining at all. 12 minutes into the second half, Andreas Cohen has added goal number 4 for Melbourne City.
Well, Cohen wins the ball on the Harvey Norman replay. The tale of woe for Sydney's defending continues. Redmayne off the bench can do nothing about this. But Kewen too good, too sharp, too smart, and Sydney too poor. This one's done in fancy. Easter and attendant miracles was a couple of weeks ago. Even the rebounds are falling for Melbourne City. And he is too good, really, from that range. Deserves his goal.
A rare right-footed goal. Well, that equals their biggest ever win over Sydney FC. Well, winning margin. There's not a win yet. It certainly looks like being. 4-0 back in 2022, 4-0 in 2023. 4-0 for the moment in 2025 as well. Atkinson can't keep it in. Corner. Costa. Caceres, now Joel King. Cross, back post. Bajic is there. It's Courtney Perkins who fell in the 6-yard box. Here's Segacic. He's been afforded no space to try and show us what that left foot can do. Joe Lolly's ball. That's the thumbs up from Klimala, but it was a fairly simple one for Patrick Beach. Schreiber with Lopane. 3 passes, they've just gone straight through Sydney's press. Cohen taking on Joel King. Corner from one end of the field to the other.
Sydney just unable to resist. Melbourne City picking them off. It's been an easier day at the office than they might have expected, although the signs for Sydney have been worrying for weeks.
Marco Tilio with the corner for Melbourne City. Delivered into a good area. Atkinson was there. Caputo looking to pounce as well. Redmayne claims it, but only just. It could have been worse. It may yet get worse for Sydney FC.
For all intents and purposes, it's a free effort for Melbourne City.
Now, Anthony Caceres.
Looks like his groin as well.
Exactly, which is not good. Ryan Grant coming to check if Caceres is okay. Maybe just a knock. Really a Vidmar.
He's looked proppy. Sorry, Robbie. Caceres has looked proppy through this second half. I can't see him continuing.
Well, there is the live ladder. Western United have just scored through Michael Roos in their game against the Premier's Plate winners Auckland, so they are fulfilling their part of the bargain. Perhaps unbeknownst to them, though, at this stage, Melbourne City have only extended their lead. Now, Caceres has rejoined. I think he gave a shake of the head to the bench to suggest, you're not getting me off here.
Courtney Perkins doesn't look at Courtney Perkins. He's on one leg as well. I mean, Sydney, by the looks of things, will do well to finish with 11 players on the field.
It's a good run from Caputo for Cohen again. Yeah, Courtney Perkins is really struggling.
This may be a story underneath the story. But just the resistance is paper thin. And Melbourne City having a real time of it. Wonderful hit-out preparation for them for the knockout matches
Sydney FC, Norfolk Tale will look back to moments this season where matches got away from them, where things didn't go their way in the A-League, but also in Asia, where that 2-1 loss in the semi-final of the ACL2 competition was a really demoralising blow for the side. Joe Lolley's late goal in Sydney, not enough to upset the Lion City Sailors. Having said that, they've also had some fantastic late shows where, as Lolley shoots, cleared by Trewin, they've scored more late goals than any other side other than Auckland in the competition, so they've also saved points late. It's that Segicic hat-trick off the bench. They've got a free kick here.
It's an honest play at the ball, I'd suggest, from Lepane. A foul nonetheless. Some very important game minutes coming into the legs of Matt Leckie. What a fillip for City to have him primed and ready for the knockout matches.
Well, that's a sight for sore eyes for Melbourne City fans ahead of the finals as well. Taken quickly, Segicic. Douglas Costa has got it back. Sydney trying to find a way through. The glancing header is excellent from Patrick Klimala. Well, his introduction has made a difference. We're about 3/4 of the way through this contest and Sydney are on the scoreboard. Is it too little too late?
Well, on the Harvey Norman replay, again, it's just another piece of evidence that Sydney have the quality, if they can get the ball into the front third, to hurt their opponents. And Costa dropping that ball in, really intuitive finish from Patrick Klimala. That's the quality he brings to a football team.
Here's 11th. Well, if he can get a hat-trick off the bench, a la Adrian Segicic, he will race to the top of the goal-scoring charts alongside his teammate as well. Scoring goals, as we've said, hasn't been the problem for Sydney FC. It's been keeping them out. Here's Cohen. Little ball for Caputo. Oh, it's completely missed by Joel King. And it's a good save from Redmayne. Now Tilio, blocked by Courtney Perkins. City still have it. But it could so easily have been another there. Segicic's heavy touch could only bring the foul on Atkinson. Now triple change coming. Mehmeti, Leckie and Rahmani coming on for City. Cohen. One of the players coming off. Marco Tilio. And Zane Schreiber. The players making way. So, Aurelio Vidmar, even though those 3 substitutions were ready before conceding that goal, Aurelio Vidmar getting to give some important minutes, not only to Matt Leckie, as you said, Andy, but also a couple of the youngsters who they will no doubt be counting on as well. Patrick Beach, there'll be no 12th clean sheet of the season for him. Number 3 ranked keeper in terms of saves made this season. Patrick Beach. Here's Douglas Costa. Now, Sydney could get a second. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but could just make things interesting. Would be a good test.
Sure. They're certainly capable of getting a second. Are they capable of stopping City at 4?
Well, we might get a quick answer to that question here, because there's plenty of City blue forward. Mehmeti. Oh, it's a nice touch, Mehmeti. Again, City finding themselves face to face with Sydney's goalkeeper all too easily. Here's Leckie. Leckie gets it out the back door to Atkinson. Lopane, fouled by Joel King.
Well, did what he could there, Mehmeti. It was not easy. And you just saw how, as he was through there, there's the foul on Lopane, but as he was through, really difficult to change direction. The turf does tend to give way, and he just couldn't turn sharply enough to really square up to Redmayne, who was cool as a cucumber, saw the danger away.
Cohen taken quickly towards Leckie and claimed by Redmayne. It's a yellow card for Ryan Grant, who's continuing his little war with Cohen. Been going at each other off the ball pretty much all game. Yellow card for Ryan Grant. Referee had a good view of it. Here is Cohen again. Costa back with Lolly. Now Caceres. Lolly again. Costa. Nice football, Sydney. Klimala. Little ball over the top for Segicic. Now, has he been brought down by the goalkeeper? That's what the Sydney FC players are saying, as that's gone out for a goal kick. Beach has stayed down as well. You can see the pitch is making it a little bit slippery out there. This was nice football.
Well, keeper desperately throws himself. Second to the ball, doesn't get the ball, takes the player out. Is that a scenario that sounds reasonable? Or is you can just throw yourself in with impunity?
Well, traditionally, you certainly could.
I know it's
anyway by VAR. You know what I mean? When you see the action, keeper comes,
you've just
player
said,
had the shot.
Sure. You've just said it's been cleared by VAR. Again, it's more evidence that that threshold for VAR interference, involvement, has been get out of it. If the ref doesn't see it, back the ref. It seems that's the way we're going, because that clearly, in not too long ago, would have been stopped. Let's go and have a look. Oh, I think he's a bit fortunate there, Patrick Beach, myself.
Leckie letting Douglas Costa know that he's there. Nice play. Costa's come a little bit deeper in this second half. He's starting to find the odd little ball. He's moving out wide. He's finding areas less populated. Segicic for Waim. Pereira in cover. So there was a change there for Sydney FC as well, as Will Kennedy comes on into that left-back position. Grant, Wayim, beyond Segacic, too far. So Kennedy has gone to left-back. Joel King has moved back into the middle, and Courtney Perkins has made way. Just Will Kennedy's second A-League appearance after the 25 minutes in the round 20 scoreless draw with Perth. He's been a regular in the first team squad this season, on the bench in the A-League and also in their continental campaign. Beach looked a little ginger after that challenge with Segacic, but he's moving freely enough now. Mehmedi wins it back off Caceres rather, who then fouls Lopane. And there have been moments where Sydney have looked a side capable of fighting with this City outfit, but again, defensively, it's just been all too poor. One for Rahmani to chase. It's only just going to make it out of play in the end. Popovic is asking Redmayne to come for it. And now Atkinson's down and requiring some treatment. There we see the new reserve goalkeeper, Dakota Oshinham, on the bench after the injury to James Neuenhausen. An ACL for him. Jamie Young is now playing in the Victorian NPL after leaving midway through the season as well. They do have a couple of other options. Lawrence Wong and Jurakovic, but perhaps Atkinson might be all right.
Well, you don't want him getting injured. I mean, he's been a stalwart for the team, and how cruel would it be if he is picking up a soft tissue injury at this point, having carried such a load when Melbourne had to play all those kids.
We just saw some of the injured players. He is making way. It's Callum Talbot who's coming on. Another of the ex-Sydney FC contingent in this Melbourne City side. Leckie, good header. Rahmani with the little touch. Here's Kuhn. Oh, he somehow managed to keep that alive, Kuhn. Mehmedi to his right. Here is Mehmedi. Touch just got away from him. First contribution for Callum Talbot. Foul by Wayim. There's the ladder. Confirmation that Sydney FC will miss out on the 6. And Adelaide, their season, they've pulled it out of the fire at the last. That incredible run of matches without victory after competing at the top of the table for much of the first half of the campaign. Carl Veert, who it's very strongly rumoured now will be replaced by the youth team, youth academy head coach Ayrton Andrioli, the Brazilian, who's also been a big part in bringing the kids through at Adelaide. So that is the latest mail coming out of South Australia, but that will have to wait by the looks of things at least another week, because Carl Veert and Adelaide United look as though they will soon be 90 minutes away, perhaps, from even a semi-final. Lopane for Caputo. Little touch, Rahmani. Mehmeti's in the middle. Lopane was waiting for the cutback. Foul on Bajic. Andreas Kuhn with the free kick. 11 minutes to go, plus stoppage time. Kuhn with Bajic. They just soak up a few more seconds. Douglas Costa thinks he could have had the throw. It doesn't go his way. Not much has gone Sydney's way, really, in the last couple of weeks. I guess when they were eliminated from the Asian Champions League 2 competition, I guess it could have gone one of two ways. There was the opportunity to focus on the league, to be only playing one game a week in this run into the finals. But it looks, unfortunately, as though the morale-sapping defeat has just cut their legs.
Yeah, well, like I said, in my opinion, they were dragging caravans well before that. As a team, the freshness had gone.
And they weren't able to get it back over this last 3 or 4 weeks as well.
Well, they needed a draw in their last 2 games. A team with this collection of CVs, if this team cannot get a draw in 2 games, there's something seriously wrong.
As it stands, this will be back-to-back losses for the 3rd time this season. Back-to-back losses that will cost them their chance of the championship. Rahmani with Kuhn. Mehmeti. Mehmeti fires across the face of goal, having stood up Kennedy to make space for the shot towards that far post. Got plenty on it, couldn't find a teammate arriving at the back post either. Those City fans enjoying this moment. They're a side that have been brought up on caviar in recent years. That series of grand finals, they could only win the one, of course. They lost the elimination final on penalties last year. That quite remarkable match against Melbourne Victory. Caputo. Clever pass for Rahmani. Another little backheel drag from Kuhn. Mehmeti for Talbot. Talbot strikes it, almost found a teammate. Only ever got 1 goal, Callum Talbot. Doesn't mind trying it from distance, though. That came in the ACL2. Still looking for his first A-League goal.
Well, a great night for the Melbourne City A-League men's team. This afternoon, the Melbourne City A-League women's team couldn't see off the Central Coast Mariners, so that home and away knockout series in the league women's comp remains alive. And we'll use that segue, Robbie, to reveal what I understand to be the case, that the speculation around Joe Montemurro, former Melbourne City coach, is about to be extinguished. My mail is that after a long and protracted negotiation process, that deal is now locked in.
We'll come back to that. Here's Talbot shooting, claimed by Redmayne. Well, he wants that goal, Callum Talbot.
And I think now we just wait a matter of days or weeks before Football Australia announce Joe Montemurro as the next Matildas coach.
Well, he's still with Olympique Lyonnais. They were eliminated from the Women's Champions League, but the French Women's First Division actually has a final series. So they will be the premiers, if you like, again, Olympique Lyonnais, the best team in France, but they have to play semi-finals and then potentially a final if they want to be champions. And that final will be played on the 17th of May, I believe, which, judging from what Tommy Samani said last time out, maybe just a little bit too early to actually announce a squad and be present as the head coach, as we see a couple of changes for Sydney FC. Jane Kucharski has come on. And Thiago Quintal as well, so another couple of attacking moves. Here's Kennedy looking for Klimala. Quintal slides in. Kennedy slipping and sliding, gets the free kick off Mehmeti. Fairly heavily strapped right knee for Will Kennedy as well. Popovic, Lolly. That was the final window for Fuktale. Quintal with Caceres. Caceres straightens up. Costa driving it across too deep to the back post, cleared by Rahmani. Don't forget, coming up after this one, Football Tonight, and then MacArthur versus the Wanderers, the Paramount Plus Player Index. No surprise to see that is dominated utterly by Melbourne City, as is Bayic, outstanding again today. Got the opening goal. Marco Tilio was amongst the goals. Kuhn and Caputo as well. Emin Jurakovic, a famous name in Australian football, coming on to replace Kuhn. Adam Kersey coming in, just telling him to get a hurry on for these final minutes. He's had another good game. Andreas Kuhn, he's a quality footballer in this side. And for Jurakovic, who came off the bench last weekend for his 4th appearance of the season. Another opportunity for him, the son of Socceroos legend Mehmet Jurakovic.
In the 3 games of such significance this afternoon, depending on results, was second place going to be contestable after this game? Got an answer, no, which means 6th place is tied up. And now the only place changing if Western United hold on.
Just stay with this. The cut back from Costa towards Quintal. Well, it was a good opportunity. He's been far more effective in those wide rolls.
2-0 up at home. Still second half to come, of course, out at Tarneit, but looking good so far, Western. Great news for them announced during the week. We very eagerly await final confirmation of that. But they win that match, and really it's just whether the Wanderers and Melbourne Victory change places on the table.
That means a home elimination final. That's the last piece of the puzzle that can still be decided. Yes, a new ownership structure at Western United. Hopefully the much needed funds injected into the football club and its parent company. American investors getting on board. I think we will await Sydney FC's announcement of who their coach will be next season as well. Tale likely to be. Changes expected. Well, we know changes coming in Adelaide. Yet to be announced, but heavily rumoured changes coming at Brisbane. There'll be a change at Newcastle. Going to have 5 minutes of stoppage time here for this final game of Andrew Redmayne in a Sydney FC jersey. Caceres back with Popovic. Unfortunately, Sydney FC's defence has been unable to provide the answers that their supporters would be reassured by as well, looking towards next season. Alexander Popovic has signed on for the next couple of years. Joel King as well, after returning from Denmark. Another year. Lopane forward towards Jurakovic. Popovic's header, Lopane. Leckie. Haven't seen too much of Matt Leckie as he eases his way back into competition. It's been a really stop-start season for Matt Leckie. Outstanding in his first 2 years back in the A-League with City. He'll be hoping still to play a part with the Socceroos, I imagine. For that, he'll need to be back fully fit and stay fit and get his form back. He's playing in the centre of midfield today. Joel King all the way back to Redmayne. Truant with his header forward. Leckie, that's a good switch of play for Rahmani. Touch just got away from him. Ryan Grant quickly on the scene. Quintal, Lolly for Grant. Here's Caceres. Kucharski with Caceres. Now Kennedy. Kucharski able to face forward. Klimala. Offside. Right to the end. It just hasn't come off for Sydney FC.
There's Klimala just drifted offside. Great decision by the assistant on the far side, Hugh Fenton-White.
Caputo's header. Jurakovic releasing Rahmani. There's still time for City if they want to add another. Rahmani going around Grant, who recovered along with the help coming from Popovic. It's out for a corner though.
Hardyaker still for Sydney. And the dressing room is just going to be extraordinarily desolate post-match. A campaign that has just fallen off a cliff with very little resistance. Ultimately, massively disappointed for all concerned. Melbourne City really had a couple of scares defending their own goal because of Sydney's quality, but otherwise have barely had to break into a sweat.
Adelaide have been given a reprieve. It'll be interesting to see what they can make of it in the next few weeks. A second chance they probably didn't even dare believe in themselves 2 weeks ago. Caputo gets there, he's being dragged again by King. Here's Mehmeti. Mehmeti comes into the left this time and shoots, and that's 5. And surely now the misery is complete for Sydney FC, and the elation likewise for Melbourne City. A 5th goal of the campaign for Mehmeti off the bench and completing the rout. So much anticipation ahead of this clash, Andy, and the score tells a fairly stark and brutal story.
Yeah, completely, Robbie. On the Harvey Norman replay, they didn't throw the towel in Sydney, but they've been carried out of the ring. Bereft, effortless finish this from Mehmeti, but bereft of Sydney. Just could not resist, pretty much from kickoff. The first attack on goal from Melbourne City all those minutes ago resulted in a goal, and it looks like they'll finish proceedings with their 5th. And they move on to bigger and brighter opportunities. Sydney will be licking their wounds.
It's the first time they've ever scored 5 goals against Sydney FC. They have marched into the finals. Melbourne City have marched into next season's Asian Champions League. After back-to-back draws had opened the door to those chasing them, they have slammed it shut with an outstanding performance at home in their final match of the season. For the second time this campaign, they have netted 5, but it has come in a massive clash, one where we expected so much from Sydney FC, and in which they failed to deliver. Very much the story of their domestic campaign. Brief moment of light midway through the second half with Klimala's goal, but otherwise Bajic, Caputo, Tilio, Kuhn and Mehmeti, as has been their want this season, they've shared the goals around. Melbourne City, comprehensive victors at Amy Park, again for the 8th time in a row at home to Sydney FC. They're in the winner's circle. It's finished here. Melbourne City 5, Sydney FC 1. Well, let's have a look, Andy, at the Harvey Norman highlights, and it started early here. 5 minutes in, as is Bajic's first of the campaign.
Yeah, and their first sighted goal for the afternoon. Weak defending from Sydney. So too, this even further up the field, but no resistance at all. Caputo doing well to stop the ball, change direction, and then find the gap at the near post. And the third's as poor for Sydney. It was just a calamitous start for a team that just needed a draw to try and salvage their season. But none of these goals make for pretty reading.
And they never looked like being capable of holding them out.
Not at all. And Kuhn, the great lockpicker in the league, helping himself, well deserved, to a 4th. Costed to Klimala. This was a tidy effort. Sydney had some moments in front of goal, hit the post twice themselves in those earlier stages. But really, it was almost inconceivable the way they were moving that they were going to get anything from this. And Melbourne City did what they needed to.
Well, let's have a look at the Alex Tobin medal points then, as is Bajic. with that first goal that got them on the board. He picks up 1 point. Marco Tilio, who's been in outstanding form in recent weeks, with 2. But the architect was Andreas Kuhn. The Austrian picks up all 3 points, and he's with Michael Zapponi. Zappers.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. Andres, congratulations. Outstanding. You're our player of the match tonight. How important was this game, given what's happened in the last couple of weeks and the Champions League? Was that something you focused on tonight and spoke about in the lead-up?
No, we focused from game to game, so we were a little bit unlucky in the last games. We could have finished earlier. And yeah, I think today from the first minute, you saw everybody was fighting for each other, and yeah, it was an amazing team performance.
You've obviously had some injuries leading into the season, early part of the season.